Hello, my name is Robert Dean Steele, and this is your daily Bible class. Now, we're talking about the lowest seat at the feast. That's the parable. It's found in Luke chapter 14, verses 7 to 14. Now, this is what happened. When Jesus noticed how the guests picked the places of honor at the table, he told them this parable. When someone invites you to a wedding feast, he says, do not take that place of honor, for a person more distinguishing than you might just be invited. If so, the host who invited both of you will come to you and say, give this man your seat. Then, humiliated, you will have to take the least important seat. But when you're invited, take the lowest place. So when your host comes, he will say, friend, move up to a better place. Then you will be honored in the presence of your fellow guests. And everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted. What Jesus is basically saying, listen, when you decide to place yourself forward, there is a possibility of humiliation. There is a possibility that someone more important than you think you are, is going to come to that place, and then you'll be humbled. But he says, if you go to that place, and now the whole illustration, of course, was Jesus was noticing that different people were taking different places at the feast. And what was happening, he probably even saw the host coming saying, listen, this has been reserved for this person. He says, take that place of lowest honor. He says, go and stand by the buffet table, all right? Go stand by the servants' area, and then what will happen is the host of the feast will come and say, no, this is where you belong. So instead of being humiliated in front of people, you will be honored in front of people. Jesus then says, when you give a luncheon or dinner, do not invite your friends or your brothers or relatives or your rich neighbors. If you do, they will invite you back, and so you'll be repaid. But if you give a banquet, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind, and you will be blessed. Although they cannot repay you, you will be repaid in the resurrection of the righteous. So Jesus is bringing two wonderful illustrations here. He says, number one, listen, if you're invited to a banquet, go down to a place which is considered beneath you. And then what will happen is the host will come and will honor you. He says, but let's look at it in a more practical way. He says, if you give a banquet, if you invite all your friends and all the neighbors and all those people who can repay you, what reward is that? No, invite people who can't repay you. Invite people who aren't, don't have an expectation. He says, when you do that, in the day of reward, when the righteous are rewarded, you will get your reward. What Jesus is saying, if you want to be great in God's kingdom, learn to be the servant of all. If you want to be honored, then he says, humble yourself. It's like humble yourself in the sight of the Lord, and in due season he will lift you up. There is a wonderful illustration of reward and reaping. When you reap to those, or sow to those who cannot give you back, it's God who will reward you. If you sow and give to those who can give back to you, you've done nothing except do a cycle of reward. They will feel obligated to invite you back, and that way you get to lots of banquets, and you give lots of banquets, but everybody doesn't get anything out of it except the invitation. But if you do something for someone else who cannot reward you, it's God himself who will give the reward on that day. Wonderful practical advice. And it all started because Jesus noticed some people taking a place of honor at a banquet. And Jesus says, let's look at it in a different manner. Let's look at the way that God sees it. And that's the way that God sees it. My name is Robert Dean Steele. This is your daily Bible class. You have yourself a great and godly day.